And we're back. I'm Cloakin, and we are 2 series in on Group C here for the HGC 2017. Fantastic matches, 3 games each as well, as we saw Roll20 take a 2-1 victory over Red Canids, and then just wrapped up Team Dignitas 2-1 victory over Korea's Tempest. It was a fantastic match. You should go back and watch it if you missed it. But up next, the winners matchup. This one, NA versus EU. This one's for you, Reddit. Who's going to take the first seat out of Group C for Blizzcon? You're going to want to stick around to find out. Let's head over to our regionally diverse panel with the non-biased Brit himself at the helm, Kai Laris.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for that lovely call out. I appreciate it all the same. As we do get into this, of course, Dignitas, some of my boys over there, are going to be going up against Roll20. And not only is there the potential to be able to advance onto BlizzCon, advance onto the round of 8, as Cloaker mentioned, EU versus North American Pride, and also North America still looking for a big win over a European team, Gilly.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll balance you out here on this side of the desk. I got you, fam. Yeah, Roll20 thinks that they can do it. I talked to Glowering this morning, and even though they lost the initial game, they're all warmed up and ready to go. They were able to defeat Red Canids, and they're looking to be the team that does represent North America well and does get a victory, a major victory over an European team.
For me, I think that this is going to be pretty clean and dry. I saw Tempest, sure, they played pretty poorly, especially in game number 3. I was really disappointed with their performance overall, especially after such great games in game number 1 and number 2. The Dragonshire game, really intelligent play from Dignitas. I was talking to Grubby about this backstage. It looked like Dignitas prepared every single piece of that draft. Everything was locked in very quickly. I think Dignitas' preparation is top tier out of the 4 teams in this group, and I think they should be able to take this with a 2-0.
I'll check in with you in a second, Grubby, as of course we need to take a look at the bracket and see exactly how things have gone down so far, as we have Roll20 and Team Dignitas being able to steam on forward into the winners match, so they have an opportunity to claim a round of 8 spot. Meanwhile, down to the bottom, later on, we're going to have Red Canids going up against Tempest. But Grubby, moving things and shifting things back to where we were before, Roll20 esports going up against Team Dignitas. What are your initial overview thoughts going into it?
Well, first of all, Roll20 has not tasted the bitter taste of defeat for a very long time now. They came off the back of an NA HGC season with 7 consecutive victories, now defeating Red Canids. Losing a battleground is one thing, but an entire series would be quite another. So, if anything, this is going to be a really tough benchmark to see how the team sticks together if they end up losing, or maybe their string of triumphs will proceed.
All right, well, let's focus firstly on Team Dignitas here coming into this series, as they have just come off the back of defeating Korea to start things off. So, Gillyweed, looking at that series, you know, being able to really kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb, how do you see Dignitas' prospect going into this series?
I love what Dignitas is doing with early structural damage. They're trying to get a keep down as fast as they possibly can, and then playing with their food, playing with that, with vision, and trying to force their opponents to play scared from that moment on while they do what they need to do to work themselves into a victory. And I don't know if Roll20 is ready for that. Tempest didn't seem ready for that, although they were able to come back on the first game and be able to get a victory from that. But it is a pretty terrifying prospect to know that a team is that aggressive early on.
Right, they didn't throw the dice and see how will the team fight end up. Dignitas, the very essence of their play tasted completely different from every match we've seen so far of the BlizzCon opening week. They disengaged from any fight that doesn't spell a really good outcome. Giving up the curse on Cursed Hollow just now, giving up the boss. These are things that look like a mistake. Oh, it was stolen from it. No, exactly what they wanted. They played it safe. They just pulled back whenever needed. Very clean, very calculated.
This team is so well prepared. They have drafts set up for this, as Gilly was talking about, getting the early keep, having that catapult pressure to control vision, to be able to threaten core calls and things like that. That Dignitas has been known for. The European region has been known for that late game prowess that comes from an early lead. I think it's almost, you can call it idealistic, the way that Dignitas plays. They only look for the ideal situation, and if it doesn't suit every checkbox that they're marking, they just walk away, and they have that lead, so they have that fallback.
And of course, our second team here going into it, of course, Roll20 esports, who had a bit of a rocky road there against Red Canids, something that we didn't expect coming in, but they're still a ferocious opponent, especially when it comes to the North American standings.
Yeah, Prismaticism said that they weren't quite warmed up yet, and I would say they definitely underestimated the members of Red Canids.
Yeah.
Granted, it was probably a fair underestimation to have. Red Canids had 2 subs, but Red Canids in their regional, to me, seemed the strongest Latin America has ever looked in Heroes of the Storm, and even with the world-class players that they were able to get as subs, still very good. And after they realized how good Red Canids were, Roll20 adapted to make sure that they were still dominant in the next 2 games.
Yeah, I think that it was adaptation coming out from Roll20. I wonder what they'll try to bring in here if things go sour on the first map, because we saw them pull out on Tomb when Tomb was chosen against them, that Chromie. We saw the Medivh on Infernal Shrine. So they've kind of already shown their hand, and that was something we were talking about in the desk here last time they played in that first match of the evening. So what they do now, if they fall behind in a map, will this strategy be used again? I think Dignitas has plenty of time to repair. It seems a little bit predictable. That's what I'm worried about for them.
One thing that I don't think we'll see too readily, Wolf, is like Medivh first pick. This seems to be, I think, a hero, the kind of one-trick quality that by now people have come to expect from Roll20 with such an excellent Medivh like Glaurung. But I think we have to see more like really foundationally good strategies that don't rely on such an off-meta pick in the first slot. But who knows?
Okay, let's find out which battleground we're going to be going to here for our first game in this winners match. Roll20 picks Infernal Shrines to start things off, Gillyweed.
One thing I want to add to that is that as a person who commentates Roll20 a lot, I don't feel like they've shown anything. They've shown that much.
Okay.
Maybe the most that they've shown is that Glaurung is fully on a secondary support role, but even that might shift later on. But otherwise, everything that they picked, everything they've done is something that they have picked and prioritized in the past.
You say this, but on the other side, do you think Dignitas is also kind of on that spot where they were picking the Tassadar Tracer against a team like Tempest? Because if they didn't, Tempest was going to take it, but Dignitas is also well-versed with it.
I do think that's a part of it as well. Usually a team like Dignitas with realistic ambitions for #1 spot, I think they're going to have a lot of standard metas that do work really well. They're not going to suffer from things like, let's play our standard without showing anything special and then accidentally lose, like Roll20 kind of did against Red Canids.
All right, going into game #1 here, the draft begins. The winner of this best of 3 moves on to the Blizzcon round of 8. And if you wanted to first pick a Medivh, unfortunately, it's not going to be the case now.
Yeah.
Dignitas plays versus Expert a lot, and it's sort of the same kind of drafting style versus that. ADRD often plays either Tassadar, Abathur, or Medivh, and here they're taking Medivh, or they ban Medivh, and then they take Abathur. So it's kind of like drafting versus Team Expert.
I think what Dignitas is going to look to do in this series is to win the macro game, whether it's with solo DPS or double DPS, the Falstead stuff we've seen from Fnatic already, Dignitas a little bit as well. I think that's going to be what they try to approach. Roll20 runs top-tier solo lane heroes like the Sonya in their drafts. They do draft those types of heroes, but they don't often play around them. We saw them running on Sky Temple, Glaurung in the top lane on Malfurion, for example. So they never really have lane pressure. Dignitas is going to look to use lane pressure to get those early keeps like you were talking about, Gilly. So I think that's the kind of drafting we can expect from the European side of things here.
I am very interested in a draft speed analysis by the end of BlizzCon, because Dignitas has been kicking it out of the park with the speed of their picks. Let's see how many seconds it takes for their second and third pick to come out here. Brightwing and Uther by Roll20. And what's also cool is that Dignitas first banned Abathur 3 times in a row against Tempest just now. And then goes to pick it here, showing a very complete storehouse of strategies against different teams.
So it feels like Roll20 Esports is actually, with those picks, focusing Bakery pretty heavily. If you think about the position that they're currently in. But the thing is that they only have 1 ban left. And even if it's Karazin or Morales, he can go to the other one if he wants.
Well, one thing that Uther Brightwing accomplishes outside of isolation of a single support, they're the 2 heroes that are best at shutting down melee assassins, like Tracer, Illidan, Zeratul, whatever. And so it both enables it for Roll20 to run something like that, as well as shutting it down from Dignitas. And because Dignitas already has Abathur, that is also enabled on their side. So I do think it's two smart support picks.
Yeah, especially seeing that Abathur pick. But Greymane is still a really good addition with an Abathur and Rhaegar. Making sure that they have both good Shrine Clear, and they still have somebody who works well with the Abathur. They have a clone. He gets the bonus from Curse of the Worgen. But now seeing an Arthas ban, so they don't want to give another synergy to Abathur.
That's
as
also,
well as a Shrine Clear.
yeah, I feel like that's a little bit suspicious, that Abathur ban. I think you look to the Sonya ban.
Arthas ban,
Or, sorry,
right?
yeah, sorry, the Arthas ban. I think maybe you look towards the Sonya ban here. If you're Dignitas, take that away. It's one of their go-tos. Looking at the Genji here, actually, instead.
Let's talk about what Arthas represents. Arthas counters Greymane well, showing that Roll20 doesn't want to go down that route. He also counters heroes that haven't been picked yet, but are enabled by Roll20, such as Illidan.
Yeah, Illidan, Genji is also one of the heroes that would be negatively affected by this, and the Sonya. Not as much, but definitely in a similar vein.
She's still melee, right?
Yeah, in a similar vein, so...
I wonder if Roll20 will go that Illidan route.
It's definitely a possibility, and it's tough to counter for Dignitas with what they have left to choose. And, you know, it would be a surprising pick, but Roll20 has just shown us nothing but diversity in drafts and moving into their comfort picks and their own style when down. Of course, this is just game number 1. It's going to be the Sonya, though.
And Diablo.
And Diablo.
So we haven't seen a lot of Diablo this tournament at all yet, if at all. Is that the first
Diablo pick? He was banned already once by Red Kennedys, but this will be the first time he's locked in.
Cool. What I am enjoying from Roll20 is Justing's play. He had a lot of control over the warrior player of Red Canids with his Garrosh, always dictating when they got to engage, and really that was never, because he was always forcing these defensive power slides. He can do the same thing with his Diablo, throwing people around, making them be less than ideal setups so that he gets space for Sonya to be able to clear out the shrine.
Yeah, it's very strong, obviously, on this map because there's so many walls, there's so much terrain to charge targets into.
And Devils do.
Yeah, and you have the ability to just simply use APOC defensively when you've got a Greymane or Greymane clones and an Abathur hat. Even a Rhaegar clone, sure, it could be that is the way that Dignitas goes about this, but I like this is a defensive play.
Okay, so with this, Dignitas have the option to just completely play outside of the objective. You're against Emerald Wind, Apocalypse, a lot of zone control, and you've got Abathur, Greymane, Rhaegar. Amazing at split pushing. I'm expecting a very brainy brand of Heroes of the Storm play. Leoric leads even more credence to that. And so Dignitas is probably going to do a lot of objective skipping.
Yeah, running around it. Again, going back to that macro play we were talking about. We saw Roll20 play similarly to this with the Greymane on this map when they were facing off against Red Canids, just kind of avoiding the objective itself, right? The shrine when possible. So, question is now, what's the DPS here for Roll20? Greymane, or sorry, Genji would be fantastic here, but obviously removed. So,
and you need to stop that split push. So, who's good at defending an offlane? That's going to be Gul'dan. He's a great defender. He's not very mobile, but he is very good from behind the tower, behind the gate to stop multiple attackers. I do kind of like that. That's also the first Gul'dan of the tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I was considering, you know, the Gul'dan in the first series of the night on a similar draft, because it's so strong on this map. That was with the battery, though, with the Ariel. So now that you've got this Gul'dan, you have a lot of disruption. You have this, again, defensive tool, like we were talking about, the Horrify. You've got Diablo.
Yeah.
You can Horrify, then APOC. It's very difficult to actually hard engage with the Greymane Abathur composition they're up against.
A lot of control.
Feels like the one thing that Roll20 has to be careful of is Leoric flanks, surely, for something like a Gul'dan comp to stay alive and get good to go. Is that fair?
Yeah, but Horrify will be useful in that regard too. If he gets around the wrong side and there is a good Entomb, then Horrify, if people funnel into the Entomb trying to catch whoever's in there, can space them back out long enough for them to be able to get out or at least make it through it. I would still put it on Dignitas just because of the caliber of team they are. They are extremely strong, extremely skilled, but this is a Roll20 draft, and I think coming in with Roll20 drafts is a way that Roll20 defeats Dignitas.
Grubby?
I think straight up in team fight, Roll20 has the much better team fight. Any even fight is going to want to be avoided by Dignitas. But I think Dignitas has better map control, and I do think they can use that for a victory.
Well, we're ready to go over to the commentary team here as we do begin this first game here to determine who moves on to Blizzcon. Let's over to the commentary team as we go on to Infernal Shrines.
Thank you very much, Calaris, and we are ready for a winner's match in the first map here with Europe going up against North America once again.
I'm excited to see it. You know, Roll20 was very, very dominant within North America, but the ultimate goal has been international performance, and this is the perfect time for them to be able to step it up and show that it's more than just words here.
Yeah, and we've been talking quite a bit about the draft as well. A couple of choices that were really interesting, especially the lack of material on Dignitas' side was a bit confusing at first.
Yeah, we thought that there was going to be kind of more focus on that AoE supporting and team fighting coming out for them, but ultimately the Gul'dan, I think, is the big wild card for me here from from the members of Roll20. Not the hyper carry, you know, you typically see into that slot.
Yeah, but we are going to head into the game and we'll find out what exactly Roll20 has planned here for the game, and of course Dignitas as well. Our first map, Infernal Shrines, as we get ready to see this Clash of the Titans in Group C.
It is going to be awesome here as we are ready for it. Once again, as you said, you know, it's apparently the longest loading screen we've had all tournament.
And over to the left side now, we have Team Dignitas with Bakery on Rega, JPL on ETC for that frontline. Maina today on Abathur playing the Slugger here. Snitch on Greymane. And we have Zelia playing Leoric.
And Roll20 here in the red. We are going to have Glorong on his Brightwing, Justing on the front line on that Diablo. Goku on Sonya, Prismaticism on that Gul'dan, and last is Buds on Uther.
I'm not gonna lie, I am hyped for this series. Glorong has oozed confidence throughout the entire last few days that we had here. They've been extremely secretive about their strategies. They've been saying from the start, you know what? We'll get out of this group #1. Yeah, no questions asked. I asked him this morning, is that like, no doubt in my mind, we are the #1.
I think giddy is the word that comes to mind when what Glorong kind of just this aura of like, he is just so eager to be able to perform. And again, as I said before, it is time for the words to kind of whittle away here and make it into actual action.
Yeah, and a lot of the European teams were doubting themselves a bit after they went to Korea and were saying, okay, how good are we? Are we really on that high level where we wanted to be? Do we trade into the Koreans as well as we thought we would? And especially when we talk about Dignitas, they have felt a lot better just recently. But look at that, Dignitas with the aggression in the early game. And Glorong, once again, as in the previous series, barely getting out on Brightwing.
Yeah, the magic damage being used there was the only reason he was able to survive that one. But quickly, Glorong just teleports right on back here. A 2-1-2 is the laning situation here for Roll20. That is something that is almost never performed in the North American scene. So already we can kind of see the adjustments that they are bringing at the international stage.
Heavy pressure at the top lane in the meantime, though. Dignitas with 3 man. They want to go for the kill. They go for Goku, and they get it. They take the wall, and they get first blood as Sonya falls.
Yeah, that is now immediately you got to be looking, well, Roll20, what were they able to make happen on the other side of the map? Zelia is still fine and very comfortable, but at least we see Prismaticism and Buds trying to get that damage onto the front wall and securing at least 1 turret.
And I mean, Dignitas, of course, completely realizing that with Greymane, they have a perfect tool to burst through these structures, and they're trying to make it the best out of it. It's also one of the reasons why we even expected to an extent either a ban or an early pickup on the side of Roll20 on Greymane, just to deny to Dignitas after they showed with the early Abathur what they are trying to do here. So at this point, we are probably going to see that copy on Greymane later on in the game after level 10. And it's going to be interesting to see how Roll20 deals with that.
Yeah, and with an analyst desk was talking about the macro and map control that the Leoric and the Abathur, the Rhaegar are going to be able to provide here. And the first Shrine phase is, I feel like, really going to highlight the strengths that this composition has here. The Sonya, one of the best wave clearers for the members of Roll20, but other than Gul'dan, the only wave clear that they have, and he is stuck in that bottom lane applying pressure. So Dig has a very strong advantage on this Shrine.
And Abathur, of course, always going to be the X factor here, also in the early game. Keep in mind that Sonya is a bit afraid of ETC at this point, just because he can always make sure that she's pushed back and doesn't really get as much aggression in as she wants to. Justin also in a bit of trouble here. We have 28 stacks already on the side of Team Dignitas. Roll20 trying to gain control of the Shrine, but Greymane has taken the camp in the meantime and is now starting starting to pressure 2 lanes with the help of Abathur.
Already, Team Dignitas here with an Abathur composition very early on is winning the map objective, not losing an experience, winning in kills on all fronts at this point in time. That is not what you want to see when a slug is on the other side of the battlefield.
Exactly. So the usual weaker early game that we have with an Abathur composition completely negated by Dignitas rotations here already. And especially with Greymane continuously applying the pressure at the bot lane, Roll20 will have to react to this. They can't just simply Brightwing against Greymane. This is a losing matchup for her. She can't really sustain that. And once that Greymane gets the structures at the bot lane, comboed with now what they get up at the top, Dignitas might walk away with a pretty solid experience lead.
Yeah, Dignitas will have that momentum. And again, before where you would normally assume with this style of composition. So Roll20, if they can hit the brakes here a little bit, it's most likely going to be with them trying to force a hard initiation, some kind of follow-up with that Diablo-Sonya synergy. Again, the Prismaticism Gul'dan pick that we felt like the lack of a hyper carry is making up for the lack of map control that Roll20 has. It's just, does it bring enough to the skirmishing and to the team fights?
I feel in the end, when we're talking about Gul'dan in particular and also about the damage, it really comes down once again to his heroic ability. It's the biggest argument in favor of Gul'dan, and Roll20 really needs to use that to their advantage, get good Horrifies in, combo that with Diablo's and Sonya's damage and try to just capitalize on it with kills.
Yeah, it has been something that kind of rose to power. Once there, you know, Gul'dan came out, everybody was like, he's amazing with this macro. Look at his ability to control the map. And then everybody saw the supports, the double support coming online. They're like, well, you have to stay clumped. You have to remain grouped. We can use that Horrify as a deterrent. But even with that, I feel like it is, you know, a bit, I don't want to say dated, but it does feel like it is out of flavor of the month, if you will, when it comes to the meta.
Especially in the European scene, we see a lot of Gul'dan. So Dignitas is very well versed in using Gul'dan. Mena, one of the best Gul'dan players that we have from the European realm. But they're also, of course, extremely strong, realizing when Gul'dan is the strongest and trying to be prepared for that. So it's going to be interesting to see if Dignitas puts themselves into a position where the Horrify can really find the value.
Yeah, I expect that they will be able to remain, you know, hesitant and patient with their positioning into those team fights. But Dignitas right now is in a huge power swing. They obviously are in the lead, but they're about to gain a lot more control. Brilliant invade here too. And look at this, Goku actually trying to turn this around for the fight.
That might be a mistake, and there's the first kill. Brightwing down as Glorang moves in, but this might not be the only one. Jay, once again, whiffing a mosh pit here. That's already the 3rd time for him today. Not his finest hour here, but they still get the 2 kills that they wanted. They kill Diablo, they kill Brightwing, they steal the camp away, and with the Shrine being active, they send the Auric back, but they still break through the wall up at the top.
In Roll20, their heroics are nowhere to be found for a very long while here. This, without a doubt, is going to be Dignitas' ability to back out, pressure the map, paint it blue, pick up some of those mercs, and then use that Punisher on line on bottom. In this type of situation, they have 2 choices. You can hyper commit to the Punisher and try and siege and take advantage of the lack of 10 for Roll20, or you can go and be patient, be like, it's okay if they get their heroics. We're going to pressure top with the Shaman, mid with the camp, and the Punisher through bottom.
And as we're talking about macro decisions overall, I really like what we just saw a second ago on the screen. All the toxicness, the envenomness that we are seeing from Mena across the map. He spec'd heavily with his Abathur into the toxicness, going envenomness on level 1, prolific dispersal on level 4, and then also going into the Vile Nests on 7. So he's really just plastering all these small runs, trying to slow down opponents, getting the extra poke damage, and making sure that his team has also very good vision about rotations, which is absolutely crucial on this map.
And things have been struggling here for Roll20, but this is going to be the opportunity for them to turn it around as they go for those heroics. Horrify was picked up for the Gul'dan, and Prismaticism, we've said it before, we now need to see it come online. Hit a massive AoE. The minimum target here has to be Rhaegar. You need to make sure that the support does not have the opportunity to hit the Ancestral onto that kill target.
Also, we have Lightning Breath taken on the side of Diablo. Now, typically on this map, we see more Apocalypse, especially from Roll20 in the past with their Medivh combos to set that up. But of course, when you're talking about Infernal Shrines, Lightning Breath gains a lot of value when you are trying to take the position on the shrines themselves and try to win the objective. And Roll20 isn't a bit of a pickle. It's not only that we lost another keep on their sides or another fort, but also losing the wall up at the top makes the next Punisher that spawns top lane, the next Temple, so much stronger against them. So this is really something that you need to be worried about. They can't bait the Punisher over the wall anymore to put some extra damage on it. This one will walk straight onto the keep.
And we can see that Dignitas, wait a minute, it's got to get the collapse here with the 13 talents here. Jay goes in for the mosh pit, but it gets Horrified.
Once again, the Horrify here, and then immediately JPL in a little bit of trouble with the Ancestor comes through the Lightning Breath used by by Diablo. We're seeing the spin to win from Sonya as the Divine Shield has hit her, and she's trying to go for it. Main is about to lose the copy on Greymane. No deaths thus far, but once again, Xaylia is moving into the fight on his Leoric.
Goku goes in, he's hacking and slashing onto Xaylia, and he's gonna find, not the kill. Bakery saving the day once again. Justin goes in, gonna overpower, flip it on in, Polymorph down, and Snitch is out of here.
Snitch is down, Roll20, they get their camp. The 13 versus 10 fight in Talons ends in favor of Roll20. Great fight by them, and especially that horror fight did everything it needed to. Jay wanted to go for the mosh pit, and that would have been a devastating heroic to be used there, but Gul'dan was ready.
Roll20 shows signs of life here, but by no means have they reeled themselves back to even footing. Down to 13 talents here. Abathur, it's sad to say, has just now hit the moment where he is going to be those problems. He's hit the later stages of the game where death timers really grow out here. So Roll20 needs to find a way to gain structural control. They need to open up that middle lane specifically. So Abathur, he can't get that dance, and the rotations here for Dig would be a smidge slower, as we have 10 more seconds on that shrine.
And even with Snitch dying in the last fight, I have to say that the supports on the side of Team Dignitas with Abathur, with Rhaegar, did an amazing job to keep a lot of these targets alive. I saw several of them already dying, and then they barely just got that last second shield that allowed them to escape back to safety.
Yeah, and I want to highlight Glaurung's kiting in the last skirmish as well. I feel like he did a very good job on that squishy Brightwing of getting the kite and cycling around. But as we see Roll20 posturing all 4 members onto the shrine, gaining a lot of these skeletal defenders, but Dignitas is not interested, only sending JPL and Bakery up here, and they're focusing on that bottom keep.
Yeah, they're going straight for their keep, and only Gul'dan is there to save them, and in the meantime, Bakery and JPL are still posturing around on the shrine, threatening them here. The 2-level lead for Dignitas is solid. Mane committed to the copy here as well on the Abathur ult, but they have not gotten the keeper. It is incredibly low.
That was a very good rotation for Team Dignitas. Yes, they did forfeit the map objective, but early Punishers are not very, very good. They're just team fight focused objectives. So to get that much damage onto a keep is really going to prime them up to get the catapult pressure very easily after this.
Dignitas is fighting for it right now. They don't have the talent advantage. They need to be careful what they do here. Here comes the lightning breath once again, but Jay already moved back out. Jay on the way back.
36.
And we have 36 to 36. Roll20 tries to commit to it, but which team is going to get it?
39. It looks like Roll20 got the Punisher. Polymorph dropped, and Xaylia is going to go into Ghost form.
Big problem now at the same time as though Abathur at the bot lane.
Ooh, yes. He'll be able to help with that experience, make sure lock in the 20, and then that keep we were talking about that was primed and ready. Glaurung is the man to respond back here. He'll have the teleport in case something happens at mid.
And exactly in the mid lane. Here's the bait over the wall. Already the defense started, but look at Justin. He's trying to flank here. He's trying to go in. He doesn't get the flip, though. Doesn't get the overpower here. But he pushes Team Dignitas back and makes sure that Roll20 can easily claim the fort.
Very good restraint here from Team Dignitas after losing Xaylia and just sacrificing some of the opportunities on that middle fort, staying very far back, and now they'll be able to lock in the 16. And Roll20, I'm surprised they're still sieging. Dignitas wants this fight.
Yeah, at this point, Dignitas has the talent lead, and they're already trying to go for it. Royal Focus has now been picked up by Leoric as he's starting to move in. Justin is in trouble. He tries to go for the lightning breath, but he goes down, and that's his soul's gone. And we are not done yet as Goku is chased, and so is Prismatis' man, but down goes Gul'dan, and we have barely an escape on the side of Sonya, but it looks like Butts might not be that lucky.
She didn't escape. She's getting mounted up there. She's able to kite around very effectively, so good job there by the Peekaboo coming up from Glaurung, got the reveal, but with those kills, Team Dignitas is going to be a very easy keep up on bottom.
They can't fight this. There's still no 16 for Roll20. They're down 1 member. They have to give that up and immediately then move back in. But there's one other thing that I actually want to point out when we're talking about talents. We haven't really mentioned too much since most of the builds are pretty standard, but I want to point out the level 13 talent on ETC. We have Face Smelt taken over Mic Check, which is something that at least in Europe you don't see all that often. With the extra slow that we have now after the face melt, it's definitely an interesting choice, but normally what most European pros at least will highlight is the synergy between the level 4 talent and Mic Check on 13 that allows you to get the cooldown reduction here. So Jay going for down a little bit of a different route here with his ETC play.
And the one thing that I'm looking for from the members of Roll20 is now that they have the 16, how are they going to stop this pressure up on bottom? Because even in that last fight, Glaurung didn't want to commit to it to be able to try and get the peel. The members of Roll20 sieging up onto that front wall was a very high-risk decision, as I tried to highlight a little bit before. And on that note, it does feel like that is, when we talk about North America, we look at North America and we say a better team would maybe punish them for some of the decision-making. How long did Xaylia hesitate before getting that initiation? The minute he locked in 16, he's like, well, we're Wraith walking in because we know this is the battle we want.
Yeah, and at this point, it's not only the pressure at the bot lane that we have with the catapults, but you also have now to deal not only with bot lane, Abathur is going to try and siege up at that top lane later on. And talking about the top lane, the Shrine is activating, and we've mentioned earlier that that wall at the top keep on the side of Roll20 has been destroyed by Dignitas early on when they were able to push through as they stole the Shaman camp. So if Dignitas claims the objective, Roll20 is very likely to lose another keep. Now, of course, Dignitas finds himself in that spot where they are on 18 against 16. This is the best time for Roll20 to take a fight since they are on even talents. Dignitas would love to stall that out. They're posturing around at the bot lane, actually, and are going to try and threaten core. And let's keep in mind, we have a double Greymane on their side.
I'm trying to question, is this the core? It is going to be the core. Rather than just going for Glorung and looking for a pick, the members of Roll20 now starting the channel to make the back. Xaylia, he's scouting out, seeing if he can get the interrupts. And now Dignitas, they see a couple of the members way back home. Try take the drawback. This is brilliant play from Dignitas again on that macro level.
They can continue to do that all day long. If you have a double Greymane on the core, those points fall fast. And that's something that Roll20 has to respect. But in the meantime, we have Xaylia at the top lane, and Abathur can just jump between the two lanes and say, as long as I don't commit to my ult, we can do whatever we want here. But right now, the rotation up has started. Right wing is still at the bot lane, 14 versus 14 stacks.
Prismat is making the transition to top, but Dignitas might be able to cut him off. That was a very scary moment. Buds even pulls out to try and... Yeah, look at this choke. Dignitas has split all the members of Roll20. This is worst case scenario for Roll20.
Jay is trying to capitalize on it. He's trying to go in, and he drops once again the mosh pit. That gets immediately interrupted, but we already have the Royal Focus on the Ominous Wrath used by Leoric to try and reduce the damage output of Roll20. Roll20 trying to get together, and we have the copy on Rhaegar going for Prismaticism in the backline, but Gul'dan survives. The fight on the Shrine, on the other hand, is yielding its first victim as Brightwing is down, and she might not be the only one. Goku is low, and Dignitas is ready for the chase.
Justin goes in to try and get a little bit of peel. Wraith walk in, the mine is hit. Goku is not long for this world. Bud's going into ghost form. Yeah, we even see Diablo going down here. Team Dignitas is just dominating on this map.
Leoric with a mace to the face, dropping Sonya, and now the only survivor is Gul'dan, and we have Team Dignitas going through the small wall in the mid lane. They want to go for core here. It's only Gul'dan. He already used his Horrify, and we have on the side of Team Dignitas level 20, and every single player is up as they are going for the core to gain victory over Roll20 in game number 1 of the best of 3 series in the winners match in Group C. Dignitas taking the lead against Roll20 on Inferno Shrines.
Really impressive play coming out from Team Dignitas again. In the very first series that we saw them perform today against Tempest, they were a lot of focus and concentration went on to how can we make them worry about their core. It had, you know, some highlights and some lowlights in the very first series, but against Roll20, it seems like it was just untouchable.
Yeah, Roll20, they struggled very much in the early game. They had a bit of a phase during the mid game where it looked for a few moments, okay, are they coming back into this? And I feel like the 18 versus 16 scenario was something that Dignitas got worried about slightly, since if you lose a team fight, you lose the objective, all of a sudden that snowball potential for Roll20 is there, but they dealt very well with it using the macro advantages that they have to control the battleground.
And I just want to bring up again on that very last team fight, the splitting of the members of Roll20 and forcing that initiation for Dignitas really felt like it was the nail in the coffin. Not even beyond the fact that there was Abathur clone onto the Rhaegar single-handedly was 1v1ing Prismaticism. It forced a Horrify in every cooldown he had. So that was just amazing capitalizing on the mispositioning here of Roll20.
Forcing Gul'dan back and then trying to cut him off from the rest of the team, really splitting Roll20 was crucial here. And I'm sure that our analysts have way more to say about this first game in our winners match, so we're back to Polaris and the desk.
Indeed, a good start for Team Dignitas here for the series, but I want to highlight something that's very interesting about today compared to every other day, is that so far, I think what we've seen more so now is very technical play from almost every single one of our teams so far, Gilead.
Yes, this is an extremely strategic day, and a lot of that is coming down to Dignitas and how they're playing, how they're able to open up a win condition so early on and abuse the fear of losing the game to get a checkmate position either way. Either they defended their core there, or they got the shrine. But either way, Dignitas were going to get a victory somewhere.
Yeah, it just feels like they've run this type of scenario countless times, like thousands of times. Grubby and I were talking about the mine positioning example to stop flankers. We saw Mene clone to push the keep, for example. Mine positioning always stopping members from coming over to punish those, really aggressive bot lane pushes. You have Leoric at the top to stop potential hearts. Makes it frustrating for Roll20 to deal with potentially a core call, which I don't think ever was really the plan. And it's just the most patient, the most macro play I think we've ever really seen in this tournament. And I think Dignitas, if no one can figure out how to beat this, will go very far. I mean, we're not out of this yet or anything like that, but I don't know if Roll20 is going to be able to adapt to this in this best of 3. I don't think they can.
I mean, it looks very good what Dignitas is doing, right? And for what it's worth, Roll20 does have the mentality to counter it. They were very aware of the threat, especially the multi-layer threat, threatening core, not really going, but having the potential to actually go if they're not ready. It's just that they didn't seem able to be ever on even footing in terms of level. I actually just want to take another look at that final moment there, that final battle. As we take a look here, as we just pause it for a sec, Mene copies on the Rhaegar. Of course, this is a surprise attack. Brightwing is not available yet, and now needs to make a very difficult decision who to port into. And everyone is getting hammered at the same time. Gul'dan cannot use his Horrify. As we roll it forward slowly, he completely has to fend for himself. Now, if Brightwing helps Gul'dan, that's an easier win there, but then there's no Emerald Wind available in the fight proper. And there's just no combo ability here for Roll20 here. And it just reminds me of this old quote from Sun Tzu's Art of War, win the fight before even starting it, paraphrase. Because Roll20 is all over the place. And this is a direct result from the button pressing that Dignitas has done, the divide and conquer strategy. And it's just wonderful to have won the fight before it even begins.
Not only strategical ingenuity in the execution, but also just Mene's Abathur in general. We didn't get to see much of his Abathur at all, ever, because Snitch would normally be running that. But this time around, Mene was a very, very big playmaker here.
Any global that Dig has been a big playmaker here, whether Mene is on Falstad or Abathur, or we have Zayli as Dahaka. And what is happening is Dig is getting so much of a lead, then they just run over the map, and they use that global, and that's a big part of the fear factor that their opponents are having to deal with. Roll20's composition came online later and later. With Diablo, you're looking at 13-16. With Sonya later and later. I would like to see the next draft be something that's a little bit earlier so that they can make sure that they're being aggressive when they need to.
Is there also a fear here for other teams going up against Team Dignitas where when Abathur comes out that early in a draft, because you've got someone like Mene who now, he only played it once in Phase 2, I believe, but then you've got someone like Snitch who can quite easily go onto that. This makes their comps in draft a little bit more unpredictable.
Yeah, it makes their drafts unpredictable. There's so many different ways they can do this. We've seen them do the Falstad, we've seen Abathur, we've seen Dahaka. I feel like one way you could do, but it doesn't necessarily play into Roll20's strengths, is ban globals and pick globals early. Try to remove all the tools that Dignitas has to play this style, then try to beat them with those tools in team fights, which is not easy, but if you remove those kind of global macro tools, it's tough to draft that way. It's very obvious when Roll20 starts drafting the way what they're doing, but I think that might be their best bet.
Then you're playing Dignitas' game plan.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can very much see Roll20 would like to be playing their own game plan. So
yeah,
what's the correct choice, right?
It's tough. You know, you can't really draft that way. It doesn't play to Roll20's strengths. You're playing your opponent's style, which you haven't practiced as much.
Okay, well, of course, that is game 1 in the books. We're going to go to a short break to hear from our sponsors, and when we return, it's game number 2 between Dignitas and Roll20.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Welcome back, as we are almost ready here to get into game number 2, in fact, as Dignitas leads 1-0. Roll20 here, big task ahead of them now. It really depends on the battleground, I suppose, which we'll find out in a moment's time.
Yeah, you know, Tempest made, I think a lot of people would argue, the mistake of not picking BOE, and I think that's the option here that that they could go with here. But I'm not sure if that's what they're going to do. Like, I feel like I just don't know. It's one of those things where like Dignitas' style feels so strong. I'm not sure if there is an answer yet. Like you can't figure it out after just one loss.
I mean, some of the big names that we kind of go into these series as people like Mene and Prismaticism on one side and the other. These two, we saw Mene in the previous game looking very, very strong. But likewise, Prismaticism has to be one of the playmakers on the side of Roll20, Gillyweed.
Yeah, Prismaticism's looking pretty good so far when you look at this team statistically. He has one of the highest KDAs in the world. I think he's at 7th place, tied for that too. And then he has a really high kill participation. All of the members, or a lot of the members of Roll20 have that anyway because of their group up together style of play that they execute. Yeah. But Prismaticism is a key role for this team and has been so ever since they made the roster swap of bringing in Goku for Yoda. It put Prismaticism more on the firm back line instead of having him more of a flex player, and that's let him really hone his skills in the back line.
And of course, you've got to remember that between these two teams, they are actual, friends, these two teams, and they have that friendly rivalry going on. And we even heard in an interview that Mene, we can quote him, he said, Roll20 has big mouths and small arms. So he knows that, or at least he believes that they are
Tyrannosaurus Rexes.
T-Rexes, apparently. This is why they all tweeted out pictures of Pokemon with little arms and big mouths, apparently. But overall is that the banter is there. They definitely want to be defeating each other, not only to advance on, but also just kind of for that one-upsmanship of each other.
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of a metaphor for what we're seeing in this series. It always feels like Dignitas is one step away, and it's just right out of Roll20's reach, right? And I mean, maybe they need to find a comp where they can, or find a comp that they can win early with or something, to try to snowball the game, to allow Dignitas to do this. I mean, they've had some time to think about it now. BOE would be my go-to. That way you're just team fighting most of the time.
Well, let's find out. Let's find out what the battleground's going to be for Game 2. And it will be Cursed Hollow, chosen by Team Dignitas. So Roll20 is going to be going for first pick here, Gillyweed.
I am very surprised to see that that was the choice. But Roll20 choosing first pick for a reason. They feel like this is the best strategy for them to be able to get a game win. And it was likely that should they choose first pick, Dignitas would go back to Cursed Hollow, being that they chose it versus Tempest.
So now Roll20 needs to see what their draft route will be, because it's very possible that Dignitas would open again with an Abathur, all things depending. And Roll20 just now, they could have gone for something like Greymane Dehaka to counter Abathur, both of whom would have done fantastic. But they went for that double support choke to deny melee assassin value. And it just didn't have such a teamfight-centric character last game. So this is what Roll20 needs to ask themselves. What?
I just wanted to point out really fast that Roll20 traditionally bans Cursed Hollow too. They wanted first pick, but usually they ban this map. This was a map they used to like picking, and then it did not go well for them, so they started banning it. So hoping that they have something up their sleeves here, knowing that they're going here.
This ban is so strange.
For me, the only logical pick now is Greymane first pick.
Yes.
I don't see any... Right. I don't see it. Doesn't mean it's not there. Of course it's there. But I don't see any other reason yet to ban Cassia that early.
Okay, I was going to say, what about something like a Brightwing or a Medivh?
I wonder if it's one of those kind of throwaway bans for the potential of them saying, actually, we might like Abathur as well. Because you saw Snitch's little grin as we went into that. But, there still could be other things, of course, from maybe scrims that they may have had, etc.
Well, I think they wanted to grab either the Brightwing, the Genji, or maybe a Medivh. They wanted to go towards that first pick, right? Now that they've forced the Abathur ban, they're in a way still controlling globals. They have Brightwing, Abathur's gone, so they're moving towards that sort of style of denying those from Dignitas. If Dignitas doesn't take Falstad in this first rotation, which would be pretty unlikely, right? I think it would be a smart ban for Roll20 down the line.
So Roll20, one other thing they could represent with this Cassia ban is maybe they want to go into Tassadar Tracer, alternatively Greymane and something. These two things are pretty well countered by Cassia full support team.
Oh,
I was going to say.
They got Brightwing, like maybe they wanted to get that too, because what team in their right mind would pick a Task Tracer into Brightwing? But Team Dignitas answer back.
So this is like a cool, what I call handicap pick by Team Dignitas. You take something into something you don't want to take it into, but you do it anyway because you can tell that Roll20 has set it up that way.
Yep.
Now Roll20 will have to decide, did they have a second component to it, or has their draft been disassembled by Dignitas?
I want to see what they want to do next year because Genji's still available. We've seen these Brightwing bombs with Genji used several times, especially by the North American teams to great effect. And you know, Genji can be quite powerful against this type of composition. Tracers going in, being aggressive, you Dragon Blade. If you can get that pick with a poly, you get the kill. But otherwise, you know, I feel like this next step here for Roll20 could just be standard. They could grab the Muradin and play safe, and then ban the fall stat and just try to play normal as a result.
Okay, this is not normal, is it?
No.
I would say the most generic thing would have been ETC Greymane. And then you get the Power Slide, Polymorph combo, and Tracer, along with good generic damage, top tier, top of the shelf. But instead, anything but normal. Brightwing Morales the Haka. Does this look in any way familiar to you, Gilly? Or is it a new strat?
You
Morales could be a deny from the Morales Tracer.
On Dragonshire, it was a trace. You know, we saw this task comp with Morales Dahaka, and we saw Medevac, right? Like again, 3 potential globals tonight. So going back to kind of my strat I was talking about before in a little bit of ways here. If they ban the false stat right now, then you have very little tools to use in terms of globals now for Dignitas to get that early keep, to put that pressure on.
So you think Roll20 will be like Artana Stereo on the final 2?
Yeah, you're worried about the Juice Pirates of strategy. Would be strange to see with the Dahaka. Dahaka is the one figure that I was like, that's kind of strange. But I will say Roll20 currently holds the record in shortest game possible when they defeated Gale Force Esports on Warhead Junction with a very similar style of strategy, and I think that one had Zarya too. So that's a pickup, or that's a ban that's a heads up from Dig.
Yeah, that's pretty intelligent from Dignitas. The question is, will they be willing to run double DPS with the Tracer comp with the fall stat? If they don't, then they're just not really going to have any global options. Am I missing something here? I think this is really just going to have to be a straight up team fight oriented game from Dig.
It's the first part of the puzzle Dignitas needs to place. How do we stop a potential Morales Medevac fly-in? What's actually good against that? Falstad is pretty good. Gust them away. You can take Tyrael to deny it from Roll20. Even Artanis is okay, but I don't think Dignitas will run it.
Arthas.
Is it back to
Arazine?
Nothing special in terms of Medevac. No respect to that as of yet.
Do you guys really feel this is going to be a Roll20 trying to use Morales for Medevac reasons? I feel like it's going to be for hyper carry like type style.
Either way.
I think
it can be. Like, you need to at least do your due diligence in solving that. But absolutely, it doesn't have to be.
Especially the Dahaka. The Dahaka is what makes me think it's more toward the hyper carry with Stim Drone over the Medevac dropship. But I also still think that was a deny from the Tracer Morales.
I think that we just see a Greymane or a Vala here to round out the comp for Roll20, make the hyper carry work. You can use the Dahaka Brightwing to split push if you want to take Medevac and then threaten cores, but again, I just don't think it's as good of a style.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
What?
Well,
that was unexpected.
You could just go Diva Hammer.
Silence.
Well, they did. This has, I suppose,
we need a tank.
This has a lot of really strong split push potential as well. You can use Diva to dismount members. Like, she's really good at dismounting.
Don't pass this off as normal, Wolf.
I mean,
stop trying to explain.
This is the mech.
Let's think about what Diva can do, though, right? You can use Diva to demount people when you're trying to split push, get those keeps.
I know
you're so full of it.
This sounds very old school, but what stops the Stitches? Or I don't know. Whatever they go for as a frontliner here, like, it's a bit scary. Although you're not going to be actually sieging up unless you actually kill one member of Team Dignitas at least.
Think about it though. Self-destruct, sitting on Sergeant Hammer, no one can touch or think about it.
3 free hits
with the Stim Drone.
You go for the really long explosion. Don't come near us for a while.
Now take it back. Well, now Sergeant Hammer.
Oh, okay. So Garrosh can throw away Diva explosion, so that's always quite nice. There was nothing else that could do that yet.
I think the comp of Roll20 is going to be very difficult to execute because they have a lot of targets that are vulnerable to Garrosh, vulnerable to Pulse Bomb from Tracer. Diva doesn't eat that in this game, so...
I just figured it out.
Uh-oh.
It's Stim Drone pilot build, Diva.
Yeah?
Yeah. Pew, 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 pew. GG, well played, level 16 talent.
So you get your mech faster.
Nice.
No, just for damage. And it's
Also,
totally safe. Trust me.
Excuse me, production. Grubby's broken. If we could get another analysis, that would be fantastic.
I have to leave stage now. Right? Just give me 1 more minute.
So overall, not what we expected.
No, certainly not. I think it's a big risk. Well, they have something prepared here, and I don't want to judge it until I see it because clearly this is very
That's
well
fair.
prepared.
Yes.
I'm just looking forward to it as well, Wolf.
Gilly, you're American resident here.
I am thinking back to a time when Gale Force Esports defeated Tempo Storm 3-0 in Phase 1, and they did it with a Sergeant Hammer on Cursed Hollow. So maybe Roll20 can take a game off of Europe doing the same.
Maybe. Let's see how the votes are going at the moment out there in the HGC universe. Seems 55%, 45% split almost down the middle there. Continue to vote over on Twitter with the hashtag HGC as well as @HeroEsports. Our commentators are ready to go into game number 2. So let's watch this unfold as Hammer and Diva try and defeat Dignitas.
Diva and Hammer, you bet we're ready.
I don't know if I'm ready, but I can tell you I'm not going to be more ready than I am currently.
Yeah, exactly.
It is going to be a doozy here with the North American team going with, this is so unlike Roll20 to make this major of adjustments that I don't even know what to expect whatsoever.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting to also see the last pick on the side of Team Dignitas, since we knew from the draft that they want to be flexible. They knew something was a little bit fishy here. So at that point, they decided to go into Garrosh, which oftentimes in Europe is criticized when picked early, but as a reactionary pick like right now can make a lot of sense. We've been tossing around from a Stitches, from a Johanna to a Murder and Igni, nearly every single tank that is there, but they decided in favor of Garrosh for reasons that we can of course see now. Question still is, how does it work out against them?
We're going to have to find out. But either way, we are not going to keep you waiting any longer. We're ready to get into game number 2, again, between Europe and North America. Team Dignitas versus Roll20 here on Curse.
Right now, the 1-0 lead for Team Dignitas in the series here. If they can win now on Cursed Hollow, they would move on to Anaheim to play at Blizzcon. And we have them to the left side. Bakery for Dignitas on Karazim. We see JBL on Garrosh all the way up at that front line. Mene on Tacita. Once again, Snitch on Tracer. The combo that defeated Tempest. And Zelia on Arthas.
In the red is going to be North America's Roll20, where Glorong is on the Brightwing. Justing on a Diva, that is a unique sight there. Goku's going to be on that Dahaka. Prismaticism on the Sergeant Hammer. And last is Buds on that Lieutenant Morales.
When we were talking about it's Hammer time, everybody expected Muradin to be picked, but this time we have the Sergeant in the house. And the one thing that I actually think is extremely interesting with this is that Roll20 has said, we have so many strategies prepared, so many different things that we can bust out whatever we want in the group stage. We're not going to hold back because we have so many strategies that no matter what happens here, we will have new stuff for Blizzcon.
Protect the hammer. It seems like it's going to be the approach here. Justing up on front, the defense matrix on top of Prismaticism later on is going to be a very, very helpful tool to make sure the members of Team Dignitas do not just, blow it up. If you played Sergeant Hammer, you know that sieging up is a very, very risky thing to make happen. And biggest thing I'm looking for is how effective is that Garrosh going to be at actually impacting the Sergeant Hammer's positioning and making her second guess when she sieges up.
There's a lot of aspects to it, and especially when we are talking about Diva, for example, you can always throw the explosion, but against Hammer, it's a question, can you really hit her here? At this point, it's just a race. We're seeing Team Dignitas not reacting to the Hammer position, so not going into a play where they immediately use Garrosh on the Hammer lane and try to somehow defend. Instead, they're just starting to push up at the top lane. Now, of course, Roll20 has some serious punches here with Sergeant Hammer and are getting that fort quite quickly up at the top lane. Dignitas is doing whatever they can to meet that aggression, but eventually they will have to react what Roll20 is doing here.
Ultimately here, Team Roll20 is going to be able to pull ahead into the race, and expectedly so, considering it is a Sergeant Hammer composition. It's just accelerating the pace at which the map is going to be played. I wouldn't say that either side, unless they, got a fort and the other one didn't, is really pulling ahead. It's mirrored on both sides of the battlefield.
You're very much trying to skip the early game.
Yeah, that pretty much is it. Heroics are going to come online, normally we're like, oh, the third tribute, it can happen here or there. It's probably most likely we'll see them achieve those before that point in time. But that is really all that is going to be gained with this, as Glorong is going to be in a bad spot, not able to get the phase shift on out. There's no way he can play around this. Zelia just inevitably gets the kill.
Yep, Zelia gets a solo kill here. So Glorong goes down, Brightwing dead once again, and not quite what I expected in the mid lane.
Yeah, not what I expected either. And now Snitch is going to find himself a Buds, Prismat rather low, but luckily the healing beam is going to be just fine. Justing not wanting Snitch to get that scout the same level. But we see, again, Team Dignitas here is very, very comfortable with these small skirmishes and, more importantly, catching off Roll20. It feels like every time Dig is getting an advantage, it's the rotations and positioning within the laning that Roll20 has.
Yeah, one of the aspects though that we also have to point out is that Roll20, of course, is in this game the team that relies on Dehaka as a global. So that can really help them out later on, as we have Goku up at that top lane currently. But if you look at the experience, Team Dignitas has now started to claim a lead. They have taken the first tribute, so overall they're doing very well here in the early game. Roll20 isn't quite able to build up the momentum that you oftentimes hope for if you're playing around with Sergeant Hammer.
And though we call this the protect their hammer composition, I do wonder if that is going to be the thought process for Dignitas, because Hammer is going to be the largest damage dealer, obviously, on the roster that Roll20 has developed here, but I do think that it might be in their best interest to just focus down Brightwing. Glorong on that Brightwing is going to have to constantly second-guess where he is, and suddenly I feel like you can just get that kind of kiting and split focus into these team fights, and then that double support is going to look a lot weaker than it currently does.
Now, one of the things that we have to still point out with Hammer is, of course, that the auto attack damage on her is absolutely insane. It's one of the highest that we have from auto attacker's perspective in the game, which really makes her also strong in that sense against Tracer. You really pack a punch. So the longer Tracer starts to circle, you work these auto attacks in, it definitely hurts Snitch. So he has to be a bit more careful of how he approaches this. Combine that with Brightwing, who is a natural counter to Tracer to an extent, makes Snitch's life definitely a lot harder than in previous games. But of course, he is on that level of play where he still feels confident working in the damage and especially the potential insta-kills against any of the squishies in this setup.
Yeah, again, and that's kind of like exactly kind of the thing that I was trying to allude to there is the fact that they may not be able to get onto the hammer. Hold up a minute, they are going to this time with a nice flip on in. Bud's able to get the healing beam out, and the knockback is just fine as Justin getting a lot of pressure from this frozen Tempest here.
Yeah, that was definitely a bit of a shock moment there for Roll20. The Globals once again working for the team in red. We have currently Glorong at the bot lane with Brightwing. Over here, on the other hand, it's again D.Va in a bit of trouble. Justin nearly getting flipped here, barely walking away from JPL as he is trying to confirm the kill against D.Va. But the tribute is still active and both teams still circling the spot.
Roll20 has got Glorong up on bottom to get a lot of experience back, but there's too much pressure into the mid lane between the Tassadar Tracer. Dignitas here is really just countering every thought process that Roll20 wanted to have into this game. They thought they have the double global. They're the ones who want to be split pushing, but this is not the case.
The flank at the bot lane. Arthas is trying to get another kill against Glorong here, moving in. The cooldown on the global should be ready, though, for Brightwing, but at this point, the tribute is heavily fought over as well. Goku moves in, and here comes Brightwing, trying to at least still stuck at the bot lane, and Glorong is in trouble there.
Yeah, he's going to have to try and make it out here, but I don't think he's going to be able to, and this is the second time this game Zalia has found himself a nice little Brightwing, something Glorong has got to be clearing up here if they're going to stay alive in the series.
That was the second kill against Brightwing, so 2-0, and in the meantime, Roll20 with 4 man is making a play for boss. But if you look at experience, we have Dignitas nearly on level 10, and they're actually seeing this. They're starting with the invade. The Tong hits Snitch on the other hand, but he gets out as Mane provides him with a shield.
Heroics.
But this is a bad fight, and the boss is still active, going for Justin here. And as you said, heroics are in play for Team Dignitas.
Roll20 cannot contest this boss. Oh my goodness, are they going to even second guess this? Even if you have the miracle mega explosion.
Zelia's waiting for the flank.
Force wall dropped. Zalia moves up. Looks like Roll20 does not have the interest in contesting that, but they are still miles behind a full level as that boss is going to be marching to this top keep.
It really looked like they identified that Arthas was still at the bot lane, and they simply said, listen, even with us losing Brightwing, the death timer is so short that Brightwing is going to be able to just TP into us, and at the same time, Dignitas might not even see what we're doing here. So they risked it, but Arthas started the rotation early, realizing that he had nobody to fight against at that bot lane, and then with level 10 talent kicking in, there was absolutely no way for Roll20 to really contest this. So Dignitas stealing the boss away, now claiming the second tribute and establishing a very solid 1-level lead with now an additional boss play at the bot lane.
And with Goku being the man checking out this boss here, that means that Brightwing's the only one able to get the experience to catch up to 10. That top wave is actually double stacked. That's enough for the 10, I believe, here for the members of Roll20. It's going to be very, very close. But even if they hit this, it is not confident that this boss is going to be theirs.
Yeah, especially with Mena dropping the force walls here once again. But Roll20 is willing to fight. They don't have the 10 just yet. It's so close. They're going for it. Here comes Diva with the explosion. They're going all for it. The 10 is finally there. They've been fighting over the Emerald Wind is being used. The boss is stolen away. Roll20 does it. Dignitas loses the boss.
We lose the boss. They get the boop onto Zayli. He's going to be body blocked right on out here. A lot of damage going on to Justin. The healing beam from Buds is going to keep him alive. Palm dropped. It is avoided by the members of Roll20 as they get the chase down and they find themselves their very first kill.
Really well done here by Roll20, but all of a sudden it's Justin who's in a bit of trouble. Great force wall by Mena, and down goes Diva. They get the counter kill, but the boss is still at the bot lane. And of course, with Hammer, they now have the potential to move into this. Glorang, in the meantime, grabbing the second tribute for his team, and we see Roll20 move through that bot lane, trying to work down that keep.
They have the Sergeant Hammer siege composition, but it is scary knowing that the Arth is going to be back online. They're going to medevac right through mid and siege up in just a very different area. This is a brilliant play here from Roll20, but they need to make sure that they keep up this momentum because Dignitas was in such a dominant position up until that boss call.
It was such a risk for Roll20 to even commit to it without the 10, and it could not have come a second later. If not for Brightwing using Emerald Wind at that exact moment, that boss would have gone over to Team Dignitas. But Roll20 has the perfect timing on it. Now, on the other hand, Diva dying again. The Garrosh pick really starting to pay off for Dignitas.
That was just brilliant synergy across the board from Team Dignitas. Mene with the setup there onto the force wall, and then JPL to really just counter everything Justin had in mind. But both of these teams are at curse point. And if Team Dignitas gets the curse, hold up, Prismat, another force wall and a flip. Brightwing gonna drop the Emerald Wind. Polymorph goes on to Bakery, he can't palm, but he gets it off, and it's gonna go on.
The palm is procced, and Hammer dying in the meantime. We still have the Haka at the bot lane. He was trying to pressure the keep even more, but in the meantime, we have Team Dignitas in that mid lane active, taking down Brightwing, and they can now focus again on the fort. They're closing on 13. Goku takes the tribute, and this curse is not going to do too much for Roll20.
What this is essentially Roll20 accepting the fact that they are significantly behind and they are afraid of what might happen if that curse went over towards the members of Team Dignitas. But to be honest, I do feel like this is going to be something a couple minutes from now they are regretting. Giving up such a major map objective like 3 tributes is just something you have to capitalize on.
I think they were just afraid from the curse coincidentally happening with the 13 that we would immediately see Dignitas moving onto the lanes, grab 13, and then push heavily with curse and a talent advantage. So they sacrifice that curse. It's not going to do enough damage here, not as much as they would love to do, but that gives Dignitas, of course, a bit of an upper hand heading into the next tribute. For now, Roll20 is trying to make sure that they at least get something out of it. They focus on the top 4. They will claim 13, so they at least find themselves on the same talent here as their opponent.
Yeah, and right now things are just, again, looking good because they were able to pick up the curse. Our fear comes in the next couple of minutes, right? It's not right now. Roll20, it's like, okay, they're back in this. We're on even footing, but it's the tributes that they are struggling with and how these bosses are going to play out. Dignitas has shown that they're very comfortable sprint pressuring you and putting you in a lose-lose situation, which it looks like they're going to make happen right here up on top.
Arthur's once again trying to lock down Justin. They're trying to go for it. The explosion hits, and it hits hard. Down goes Tracer. That's a big win for Roll20. They're trying to go for Zelia. He answers with another Howling Blast. The palm comes out, maybe a little bit too early. Zelia still alive. The cooldown used by Bakery. But this is definitely a winning fight for Roll20 right now, as they're still trying to chase down the Prince.
Yeah, Zelia is just so very tanky. I did want to highlight Buds' grenade there. That was very clever to be able to get the dismount and the knockback, but nobody for Roll20 in position. But with that kill, they're going to back out, try and take this boss. Dignitas doesn't look like they're giving this up for free.
Their situation, though, Roll20's situation has improved immensely through that last fight. Before that, my biggest concern was really the tributes that we have for Dignitas now. If they get that curse and some momentum, they can really start punishing Roll20. But if you look at kills, for example, Dignitas is, as expected, the team that is currently dominating most of the team fights. But I like what Roll20 has in terms of global play. We mentioned at the beginning of the game, Dehaka, Brightwing, great globals for them. They have the Medivac as well. And with Sergeant Hammer, they have also huge pressure against structure so they can try and play around them.
Justin got flipped over the wall, and what I was going to say is a huge opportunity for a big play for Roll20 to siege up with the Sergeant Hammer. This is what their comp is great at, sieging with bosses, then medevacing for a boss up on bottom, but all it took was one clever play, and Dig is not done yet.
Arthas with the flank, Brightwing with the Emerald Wind trying to save them for now, but that medevac just doesn't go far enough. I'm sorry, Prismaticism is eliminated. He goes down, and once again we have Goku just a tiny bit too late, nearly falling there as well. The escape was so well planned. They get the medevac in, they use the Emerald Wind to buy the time to go in, and it was just like, guys, I'm sorry to tell you, but I just clicked over there.
It just feels like it was the, you know, the James Bond movie. The epic escape is going to happen. They get in the car going a million miles down the road, and then suddenly, boys, we got a flat.
It was such a nice thought process on their end, but this is the moment that we were afraid of earlier.
Force wall.
That curse could hurt, especially since 16 would also drop for Dignitas if they win this fight. Roll20, they have to put everything in as they can. Goku is in so much trouble already, trying to move away. Bakery and Snitch, they confirm the kill. The UK Dream Team, they make it happen. And now Dignitas in a 5 versus 4 situation. They're close to 16. They want the tribute, they want the curse, and they also want more kills. But it's Sergeant Hammer that eliminates Tassadar.
And Tassadar ended up going down there. JPL able to get the flip on Prismaticism. The members of Roll20 are looking to turn this thing around as Dignitas is so low. The palm goes through. The grenade seals the deal, and the kill on to Bakery. Polymorph done. And Roll20 now has 3 kills that they can use to try and get onto this boss.
What an unbelievable fight by Roll20. This was the fight they needed to win. If they lose this, they are cursed. The boss is taken, and Dignitas has a 16 talent advantage that they can use. But they turn it around. It all starts with a kill in favor of Dignitas, and then somehow Roll20 makes a triple kill happen.
It legitimately feels like every single time Dig does a brilliant play, gets an advantage, and then you go, this is a no, there is only one chance for Roll20 to set it back to even, and each time they get that miracle play. With this boss, again, they have a composition that thrives at sieging up. This should very much be a keep. I would be even willing to say it could be game depending on how many deaths happen on the side of Dig.
Exactly, and as we said before, they also still have that global play. You can see the Haka in the mid lane, you see Brightwing up at the top, and now of course Roll20 is moving to the bot lane. A little bit of lanes out push, but this is all about the siege up here. And Dignitas is pushing out far at this point. They're trying to make sure that this boss is taking as much damage as possible before the big fight starts.
Yeah, and you can see that Roll20 was more comfortable with the tribute and playing this a bit slower rather than forcing that end positioning. Never mind, Glarm's actually going to make the transition down just to help secure the rest of this keep. Force wall, and that is a terrible spot for Goku to be in as he gets flipped right on over. The taunt is there, and that is a dead Dino.
Yeah, that's a dead Dino, but you know, I have to admit something here. The kills look good for them. And overall, Dignitas is really doing well with those isolation kills. The keep hasn't fallen, which is fantastic for them. But Roll20 doesn't have to fight. They can always try to just somehow play around them, push the bot lane with Brightwing, push it with the Haka. And if at any point the keeps are gone, just a simple move with Sergeant Hammer flying in can start to threaten your core, especially if you have someone interrupting potential TPs back. So that's what I'm worried about here. I really think that Dignitas in a 5 versus 5 has shown great fight so far, despite Roll20 winning the last one quite handily. But overall, Roll20 has so many different ways they can play the late game now.
I completely agree with you that there is a lot of different win conditions available for the members of Roll20. But out of the 3 cases we've seen in this game, to where you look at it and you go, this is it. This is what the comp is built to accent. You know, it's looking to take a boss and make it a bigger problem than it should be at this point in time. Not once have we seen it be effective. We were considering a possible game situation, and they didn't even get the keep.
The keep, not getting the keep at the bot lane is definitely something that should worry them. Because as you said, we were even thinking, hey, if you get a pick here, you could maybe make that push towards the core. And now we are, but again, we are at least at 2 tributes for 2 tributes. So Roll20's position compared to when they took their first curse, and we were very concerned about the next few minutes, has significantly improved. But you are absolutely right. They have not really play to the strength of the composition to the degree that we expected and hoped for them.
Yeah, their team fight is still there. It's just the macro side that seems to be kind of missing.
It feels they could be farther ahead than where they are right now.
Yeah, very much so. But this is going to be the breaking point for either side. Justin's going to go ahead and get dropped over. The taunt is there.
And again, they're trying to go for the kill. But this time the force wall is not locking him down. Here comes Goku moving in, hitting the isolation. The pulse bomb takes down Diva. Snitch is making it happen for his team, and now we're talking again about Curse.
Dignitas will pick themselves up a Curse. The top boss just spawning. We'll see if they end up. Yes, that is going to be the decision for them. They are going to transfer here, and I would expect them to. Is this going to be a double keep play minimum? The members of Roll20, any kind of staggered death, like we said before, very much could be game. But in all situations here, it is a grim future for the members of Roll20.
The talents alone, the 16 for Tazadar with the double storm and the quest completion is something that they have to be worried about. They're having all that extra damage that especially Bakery picked up with his level 16 talent as well. So now they can soften up the targets in the backline way more. And this situation is something that you want to avoid. Dignitas pushing into Roll20 is something that the North American team does not going to enjoy. They want to be the ones that push into the opponent. Right now, the keep is about to fall, and if they get the kill after the flip here, that might be the beginning of the end. Brightwing is down.
Brightwing down. The keep is quick to follow immediately after, and Team Dignitas look like they are interested in this core.
And I would be too. They nearly have level 20, so if they get the extra talent, this could definitely be it. Here comes the explosion, thrown away right away. Morales goes down. A 5 versus 3. They go for the core. Team Dignitas struggling a bit more in game number 2, but they still make it happen. They go to the core, they drop Roll20, and they take the series without dropping a map to advance to Blizzcon and Anaheim.
Very impressive play there coming out from Team Dignitas. There was so many moments where you expected Roll20 to suddenly be able to abuse their composition, especially JPL's catch-up on top. I feel like that was really a play that was the only reason Dignitas was able to recover, because the momentum swing in the siege that should have been the top keeper, or at least half up it, and they were just so ready to make the play necessary at every moment throughout that game.
I still have to say that I really like what Roll20 did here. I enjoyed that strategy a lot, and you could see a huge amount of potential. I think with a bit of a better execution, this could have definitely led us into a third map. But as is, Team Dignitas takes the 2-0 victory, and we're going to hear more from the desk about the 2 games that were just played here in the winners match of the Group C.
That's right, game number 2 in the hands of Team Dignitas, advancing on to Blizzcon as previously mentioned. So congratulations to them, of course, going up against Roll20, but it wasn't without its mishaps in some of those moments, especially in game number 2, where Roll20 could have almost got that keep and started things going.
Yeah, I think that easily could have been Roll20's game, but I felt like every single person on Roll20's side made a costly mistake, and versus a team like Dignitas, and with a comp like they were running, there's no room for error. And so Dignitas will be the #1 team or seed out of this group.
I think we have to point fingers at Justin. His diva play it left a lot to be desired. There were a few moments with really good self-destructs, but overall, I think he got caught too many times being aggressive. That's where we go back to that Garrosh last pick that punished him time and time again. He was often demeched with his teammates not even there. He rocket boosted in and just got caught so many times. And this comp, I feel like, may have been run by this team once or twice before, but it was not a well-practiced composition.
It felt very similar to Team Freedom versus Fnatic, where D.Va kept getting hooked and gorged. And it's just this mentality that creeps into D.Va players, where you feel that you can get away from anything. Multiple health bars, boosters, and it's just proving to be wrong. We got a few really cool moments, actually, Kalaris, in this game that I just want to show again. First one here is very cool boss moment, right? Level 10, not yet quite there by Roll20. As we pause it just for a sec, we pause it here, we actually see that Bakery dodges the D.Va explosion damage. He is where he wants to be, but he radiant dashes in as the D.Va explosion happens, taking no damage from it. This was their best chance to try and contest, as Tracer comes in as well, but then Emerald Wind seals the deal. We go to the next one. That was a really cool moment, big moment for Roll20. And this one, really difficult actually to analyze properly. You see the initial forwards momentum by Dignitas. It's so good. You get the Haka flipped in there. And then as the dust clears up, suddenly this scrappy composition by Roll20 wins out in the chaos. And I'm still not quite sure how exactly.
Yeah, they losing Dahaka so earlier on, but it was this big split, and Roll20 were able to take out Tassadar here. And a lot of that comes down to Prismaticism. He used Dimensional Shift because he wanted to get up further up, but then Prismaticism flanking on in, getting the extra damage off of Focus Attack was a lot, as well as his heroic ability.
Notice also that Karazim needs everyone to be grouped to do heals. And unfortunately, everyone was split by the composition here. A lot goes back to the D.Va, so everyone's split away, and you just can't heal there with Carzzy. I mean, everyone needs to be grouped in order for that to happen. Trastar is dead, as you say.
Now, as we just pause it here for a sec, D.Va gets thrown in, gets taunted. One of those moments where you're like, do you really need to be in that bush right now? It's the #1 most obvious bush, and this is some of those individual mistakes. And then we run it forward. He picked up Torpedo Dash, and arguably this is a lot smarter than Nana we've sued. Gilly, you were saying this as well, because you get out of position. It's not about the HP you have.
Yes.
But then Arthas chases in, gets that slow, and just inches before he can reactivate and become mech mode, he dies. And this is not only the misplay here for Roll20, it's also the prescience of Zelia there with Arthas to start moving towards where you know the opponent is going to be in the future, rather than just playing reactively. Absolutely phenomenal play by Dignitas.
Overall, we theorized the idea potentially of Stitches coming in, but that Garrosh really was able to cement that in a very similar way to how that could occur. We can head over to the stage now with Kevin, who is ready with Bakery.
Thank you so much, James. That's right. I'm here with Bakery once again. Congratulations on your victory over Roll20. Must feel very good. Give me your thoughts, though, on that final composition there on Cursed Hollow. What was going through your team's head when you saw that drafted? Was it something you expected?
I mean, if I had to, like, say, I guess just question marks. A lot of question marks. Like, we had no idea what they wanted to do. We were like, we've never seen anything like this before. And I think we responded really well. The Garrosh was a super cool draft adaptation, I think, which completely shut down their 4-man push.
Yeah, that absolutely wrecked the D.Va. It was a fantastic choice for sure. So you take the victory here in Group C. You advance #1, which is great. You guys must be feeling very, very confident. How do you intend to spend the rest of the next week preparing for BlizzCon?
So I think it's very important that we get some rest. We prepared really hard for this week. So we bootcamped in Korea. We were scoring full-time before that. Then we arrived here. We've been scoring full-time. So we're just going to take a bit of a break, you know, today, maybe tomorrow. And then after that, we'll look to get back on the grind and get back up to speed.
Fantastic. One last question for you. Now that you've had a chance to kind of get your feet wet here with the tournament, what is the confidence level of you and your team right now going into BlizzCon as well?
We definitely had a few struggles when we went to Korea. Before we went, we were doing really, really well, and we were super confident that we had a great shot at this tournament. But when we arrived in Korea and found Korea was so strong and we had to adapt, we were weaker for a bit. But I think yesterday, actually, we had a really good day of scrims, and ever since then, we've been feeling really confident. So we're definitely aiming for semifinals, definitely aiming for finals, and I think we have a shot to take it.
Fantastic. I can't wait to watch all the games. Good luck on your preparation. Okay, guys, Dignitas takes the first win out of Group C. They will be headed to BlizzCon next week. We've got much more to go today, though, including our elimination match up next. You'll want to stick around. We'll be right back with more Here's of the Storm action.